Welcome to the Thrive and Serve podcast, where we focus on the amplification of self and how we thrive as an individual and taking that out into the world to do great work, to make a difference, to change the world. I am beyond excited for today's conversation. I've got my friend Jonathan Mast in the room with me, and I am a huge fan of Jonathan's work. He is a rock star in the AI space. Jonathan, I am delighted to welcome you onto the podcast today.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, me too. And just so you're aware, this is part one of a two-part conversation. And so depending when you're watching this, there will likely be a part two that we'll try and link to with the details on this episode. So please check that out because we had an epic conversation and I am literally dancing in my seat. Looking forward to learning from you today, Jonathan. Would you like just to start off by telling us a little bit about you? I know you've been like me around the block in this online world. What led you to becoming this rock star in the AI space?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I don't know if I'd agree with rock star, but I guess I've got the beard to go along with it, so I'll take it for the moment. Yeah, I mean, like you, I've been around the block a bit. I'm in my mid-50s, have spent a lot of my career in sales and marketing, and almost all of that was focused in, or at least the vast majority of that was focused in digital marketing and helping clients in that field. In 2022, when ChatGPT released their graphical interface for what we now know as ChatGPT, when I first heard about it, I actually thought it was a new chat tool for a website. And I was like, I don't care. I've got enough chat tools. And then I found out I was wrong. And it was about my third or fourth prompt that I put through it. And I was like, hang on, this is going to change everything. It was one of those few times in my life when I realized I had just been exposed to something that literally was going to rewrite the way I looked at the world moving forward. And I got incredibly excited. I am an ADHD visionary entrepreneur. I've got tons of ideas. I love to get stuff done. I was just in an event last week and they said, are you a starter or are you a finisher? And I'm like, oh, I'm a starter. I am not a finisher. I love to get things started. And one of the things I realized with AI so quickly was that it allowed me to get more done. It did a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, I want to be really clear. To me, AI has never been a replacement for what I do. It has been a tool that I use to do things faster, better, and more efficiently. Ironically, I often compare it to, like a roofing company in the United States where, I don't know all the houses are like in the UK, but I know here in the US, a lot of them have tar-based shingles that we put on and they're using nails to attach them. And in the old days, you'd see somebody climb up on a ladder and they'd bring their nails up and they'd be pounding them by hand. That doesn't happen anymore. Now they use pneumatic nailers and it's pop, 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 and things go so much faster. That pneumatic nailer didn't replace the roofer, but it made the roofer in so much more competitive and efficient. And that's really what I see happening with AI. It's the same type of thing. It's not replacing us, at least it shouldn't be. And I got so excited about teaching people that. My team at this time, though, was interesting, Colin. They kind of did a, whoa, I'm not so sure about this. And so I realized there was this gap between what my brain was seeing and I was experiencing, and I'm ready to go, oh my goodness, this changes everything, to my team going, I don't like that. I'm a little worried. I'm a little scared. And so I really decided at that point, had been in digital marketing for a long time, still love it, but was kind of ready for some different things and changing up things a bit after years of owning my own agency, and decided I really wanted to focus on helping educate both leaders and their teams how to leverage AI effectively, because I do believe when leveraged effectively, it amplifies that skill and experience. Whether you're a leader or a team member, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I think that shift, like you mentioned that you had a similar experience to me. It was almost like a jaw drop to the floor moment when we seen this possibility. It was like an instant understanding and vision to know that nothing is going to be the same again. Mm-hmm. Most don't have that response. And I know you and I touched on this in our previous conversation around that fear response, that initial response of, oh no, this is going to change the world and not necessarily for the better. I
Correct.
come across that quite a lot. I'm guessing, are you the same in your work, or are you kind of playing in the, man, how do I get the most out of this tool?
You know,
Does it vary for you?
it's interesting. It depends on the audience I'm speaking to. I'm sure you can relate, Colin. Sometimes I feel like I live in an echo chamber because most of the people that I talk to are very interested in AI. I'm an AI
Mm.
coach and mentor, and so most of the people that I speak to are already interested in AI stuff. That's why it is that they're hanging out with me, so to speak. But when I step outside of that and I'm at events and conferences and things like that, I was just in two events over the last couple of weeks, one down in Mexico and the other over in the Dominican Republic, with very successful business leaders, very successful business owners. And even in those rooms, less than half the people are actively using AI. Most of the others, we'd sit around at dinner or having drinks and they'd be like, I know I need to do something, but I don't know where to start. I'm really not sure what to do. And one of the things we hear a lot is, I don't want to get rid of my team. And I'm like, well, why would you get rid of your team? This is going to amplify your team. But
Mm.
there's a lot of business owners out there that are in that, I'm afraid if I embrace it, I'm going to have to get rid of my team, or I may be able to. And yeah, I just don't see that as a reality for many situations. Again, there will be some displacements. This is a big technology change. Are some people going to find that, their jobs may be displaced? Absolutely. Just like when I started in the world, in business, we had steno pools of people that were on typewriters and doing stuff. Those don't exist anymore in 2025. And, over the last almost 40 years, that's changed dramatically. But those people didn't just have to curl up on a ball and go away and not have a life anymore. They learned how to use a computer. And as a result of learning that, they were able to do new things they'd never dreamt of before. And I think for many, many people, that's what it's going to look like. And for many business owners, I think you're going to see team responsibilities change and some of the things that the team's doing change, but we're not going to be replacing our teams. We need that human element to amplify, and AI is that amplifier, but it needs us. I can turn on ChatGPT and let it sit on my computer all day, and if I don't tell it to do something, it's not going to do anything.
Exactly right. I love your perspective on that. Absolutely. And I'm just I'm nodding internally and externally as you're sharing there, Jonathan. So when it comes to those people who are like, yeah, I get it, I want to leverage this tool, like, how do I go about it? I know you do a lot of great work with entrepreneurs, and I'd love to get into your prompting frameworks and ideas around
Sure.
how to get the most out of the tech. What do you see as most entrepreneurs doing wrong when they first start using AI? In your experience, what are you
Mm.
seeing as perhaps the biggest mistakes or things that they're missing when they
I,
start?
I think there's two things. We either overcomplicate it and we make it harder than what it is, or we assume it can do more than what it really can. On the other end, I talk to some business owners who, and I say this with all due respect to salespeople because I am one, but can I get rid of my sales team? Because those people annoy me. No, you can't get rid of your sales team. AI is not going to let you do that. But they're hoping that that can happen. To me, the biggest mistake that most people make in general is it's much like going and taking on a new position, a new occupation. The way in which we communicate with our coworkers, it makes a huge difference in our happiness in our job, in the success that we have in that job, and how effective we can be in that job. And that exact same thing applies with AI. The ability to communicate with it. And again, that's where people tend to overcomplicate it, in my experience, at least, Colin. They go, well, I don't know what to do. It's a large language model trained on natural language processing. And ironically, the best results almost always happen when people just talk to it. And when I say talk to it, I literally mean, like, now I'm recording this into this microphone right here on the podcast. My computer, whether a Windows or a Mac device, can transcribe that in real time. And I find that when I teach people, hey, just put the cursor and now tell ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude what you want done. Just explain it like you would if it was a coworker and you were handing a task off. They're blown away by the results that they get. Because what we try to do is we try to figure out, how do I take that 3 paragraphs that, if Colin, you and I were collaborating on a project that we talk about, and how do I put it into 3 sentences by typing? Don't take all that mental bandwidth. It's not worth it. Just literally turn on your transcription and say, hey, Colin, we're going to work on creating a new press release, and here's the audience, and here's what we need to do. And there's probably some other things you need to know, because I know you're an expert at writing press releases. What else do you need to know? And I can literally prompt AI in that same fashion and get tremendous responses back out of it.
I love that. That's echoes something that I say a lot, which is think into the AI. Literally, like
Yes.
people will say to me, I'll be doing a workshop or a keynote and people say, Colin, how do I right? And as they're saying those words to me, I'm literally typing out verbatim the things that they're saying into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini to show them the outputs. And I think that ability to think into the tool is massive and far underused. I had to laugh at a workshop I was giving recently. I'll share this very quickly, but we were doing an exercise where people were going into ChatGPT, putting in a prompt, getting an output. And then the goal was not to accept the first output. It was to iterate their way to something better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and it was interesting because I likened it to Moses coming down from the mountain with the tablets of stone. Like the first response that AI gave, it was almost like it was set in stone. And there was just no, like people didn't even realize that, oh, I can go again. Like I can just say, try again. You know,
exactly.
Little things like that, Jonathan. It's surprising, isn't it? You know, we take those for granted, I guess.
Well, and I think that's true. We often, I use the phrase, I find new users in particular, they treat it like a slot machine. I'm going to pull that handle and I'm going to hope and pray I get a perfect response. Doesn't work that way in the casino. It doesn't tend to work that way with AI. It's that collaborative discussion like you're talking about. It's that asking those follow-up questions and going, okay, that's great. Just count as you, and again, you and I would do if we were working on a project. I wouldn't just come and dump on you and then turn around and walk away. And then when you're going, Jonathan, I got questions, go, no, just figure it out. Because of course you couldn't deliver a good result if that was the case. We'd collaborate, we'd talk, we'd have a conversation. And it sounds weird because AI, I don't believe is sentient, and I don't think we're anywhere near to that, but it is a very smart machine, and you can have a quote unquote conversation with it and get better responses than if we treat it as though it's just a human machine and it's literally looking for zeros and ones. It's not. It's looking for that language because that's what it's been trained on.
Definitely. And that's the next level, isn't it? Taking it as that thinking partner, that co-intelligence to have a back and forth conversation. I know you talk a lot about the idea of delegating to AI, right? So we use AI to delegate tasks and give us that capacity to be more present, to do better work and all of those great things. How do you manage that dance, Jonathan? You know, I'm a big advocate of human first, like the human stays in the mix. The human
absolutely
is in the driving seat at the most important places. What's your take on that? Like, how do you balance that dance?
Well, I agree absolutely with what you're saying. Again, I believe that AI amplifies what we do. I believe that we need to begin by I often compare it to being the conductor of the orchestra. AI may be our orchestra, but we're conducting it. We're telling the horns when to play and the strings when to do this. And we're doing that same thing with AI. And that means we're beginning the process by explaining what we want to achieve. And as AI works through that process, and I often say does a lot of the heavy lifting, we're there checking and making sure that things are right and, doing just as we would if we were working with a team of people and they were bringing us work product. We couldn't just go to our teams and say, here's what I want done, and we go golf for the rest of the day. No, we've got to stay there and we've got to answer their questions and we've got to do the refinement. But if we have a great team, they can do 10 times more than we can do on our own. And AI just becomes that team. Whether we're writing copy for marketing, that's my background, or whether we're writing a memo, or maybe whether we're just brainstorming through a process because I need somebody to bounce some ideas off of and help walk through that. AI does a tremendous job of that. But again, it's a collaborative thing. It's not a let me hand it off and see what's going to be done, because that doesn't work if we don't give it appropriate inputs. Now, with appropriate inputs, it can do a lot. I had a presentation I had to give at a mastermind recently. They wanted a PowerPoint. I don't do PowerPoints, but they wanted one. No problem. I took a transcript of a training that I was basing my presentation on, 6 hours of audio, And I uploaded that and said, I need you to review this. Here's kind of what I'm envisioning that I'm going to talk about for the 45 minutes. And can you put together an outline based upon the transcript and what I'm giving you? And AI, that process of that outline, that would have taken me hours. I would have had to review everything, go through it. In about 4 minutes, it gave me an incredible outline. But I gave it the inputs. I gave it that transcript and I told it what I wanted. I didn't just say, make me a presentation. I told it who my audience was, how long it was, what are the points I wanted to get across. And then I was able to take that outline and go to a different AI tool and say, all right, I don't like making presentations. So here's the outline. Will you please turn this into a beautiful presentation? And by the way, I like these colors and I like this style imagery. And oh, I don't want everything written out. I want this to be an outline because I want the audience to pay attention to what I'm saying, not just read the slides. And in about 2 minutes again, I had an entire 30-some slide presentation with images that I liked. And now I had to edit it. It took me about 45 minutes to edit. But that entire process took me less than an hour. And had I not had AI, that entire process would have taken me a couple of days. And knowing who I am, it would have taken me longer because I would have never gotten through it. The presentation ultimately would have been 8 slides that were basically a couple key talking points and had far less value in it. And so by using AI, I saved a tremendous amount of time, probably got it done in 1/8 the time, maybe 1/10 the time it would have taken me. And I also delivered a much better end product to my audience because the details that Jonathan struggles with because of my ADHD, AI was able to help fill in some of those gaps and do things that, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a really good idea. Again, like working with a team member and they come back and you're like, oh, that's brilliant. I hadn't thought of that. AI will do those things too when you give it enough information. But notice we didn't start with, I need to give a 45-minute presentation, make it for me. That's not how I began that process. And I see a lot of people beginning with something really simple, like I need a 45-minute presentation on topic, create it for me. And it creates it and we're like, well, that's not what I wanted to say. And well, of course not. We didn't give it enough context.
Everything is about context, isn't it?
It
You know,
is.
I think that's the critical part in all of this. And that's the thing that sets experts apart from those who are just like figuring out how to play with this. I love your phrase, the prompt whisperer. And I've learned a lot from you about like ideas and frameworks and messaging around prompts. When it comes to context, what's your kind of recommended approach for people getting started?
One, assume that you won't know all the context, and that's okay. Don't obsess, don't overcomplicate it. There's a very easy way to fix that, and I'll share that. But I recommend that we give the model context, just like I gave it my transcript and the story I just told. But I also ended that prompt with a very simple statement that I recommend you put at the end of virtually every prompt you do. And that's ask me any questions you have. So after I said, here's my transcript and here's what I want to do, the last line of the prompt was ask me any questions you have. Because
I like
what
that.
happens is AI then looks at all that context, looks at the goal that I've told that I needed, a presentation outline, and says, I'm missing a few things in order to do this because it is logical. It's trained on this. And so it has a checklist in the background that says, well, based on what you want to do, I need these 12 things. I only gave it 5. Guess what? 7 questions come up. And if I answer them, I get a much better response. If I don't know the answer, I tell it, I don't know. And then we collaborate to figure that out. But don't obsess about, oh my gosh, how do I figure out the context? Give it what you have available and then end your prompt with ask me any questions. And then the AI will literally come back to you and say, okay, Colin, here's 3 things I need to know that you didn't share with me. And it's much easier to answer that than it is to necessarily
Yeah.
think about it up front.
That makes a lot of sense. And then what you're doing, because one of the things that we see AI doing a lot is, Jonathan, you're the best thing since sliced bread. I love you. This 45-minute presentation. What a great idea. It's going to change the world. Like, here it is. Here's slide 1, here's slide 2, here's slide 3. And it doesn't even know like what the context is, what the goal is, who the audience is, all of those things. So I love that the end of that prompt where you say, ask me any questions. I'm guessing what that does is it prevents the AI from jumping straight into trying to make the whole solution. Is that kind of what you're doing there?
It almost always does. Yeah. Now, We had talked before prior about, the other thing I do is I train my AI in like ChatGPT and the custom instructions. I tell it, your job is to professionally challenge me to help me
Mm.
improve my ideas, to help make things better. And I literally put in there, I'm not looking for a yes man. I'm looking for someone to challenge me. And I use a phrase based on iron. I'll say, I want you to be the iron that sharpens my iron. In other words, iron sharpens iron, proceed. And that massively changes how the AI responds to you because it's programmed almost to be like sycophantly pleasant and nice. And it sounds like I'm talking to my mother when she's trying to apologize for something. She's just going overboard. And I don't need that. I don't need
Yeah.
you to feed my ego. I need to be able to bring you an idea and have you go, you know what, mate, there's some good stuff in there, but you're missing a few points. What about this and what about that? That's what I want out of my AI. And
Mm.
I think it saves me a lot of time and makes things better in the process.
Yeah, and I love that whole approach of the not having it be every response. You're absolutely right,
Oh,
Jonathan.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is so like getting it out of that. I spent quite a bit of time in the world of education, and one of the phrases that I borrowed from that was critical friend. So in my custom
I
instructions, I
like
have,
that.
yeah, have the AI, you must act as a critical friend. And that way then it doesn't just default to, oh, how wonderful you are. Yes, this is the best idea since sliced bread.
Oh,
That's
that's
a
fantastic. I'm
beautiful
going to have to
approach.
borrow
Yeah.
that. And I,
Yeah,
and I
by
bet
all
the AI
means, man.
understands it when you tell it, be a
Yeah.
critical friend. I bet it understands enough that it actually then proceeds to do that as we'd want.
Yeah, and I'm curious just to understand your take on system prompting. I love the approach of, and I've been experimenting with, the assume the role of, like,
Yes.
how would Seth Godin see this problem? How might Tony Robbins advise me on this life issue that I'm going through right now? Do you have like frameworks, thoughts, and ideas around that you teach?
I do, I actually get quite a bit of a dissension. So I teach people there's a four prompt framework that works really well. It's four steps. One, it begins with what you just said. Tell the model what type of expert that it is. Give it. Two, give it the context that we've been talking about.
Hmm.
Three, ask it your question. And then four, what I just shared, ask me any questions you have. You literally string that together. And on any topic, you're going to get a really good first response. A lot of people tell me, Jonathan, AI is smart. You don't have to tell it to act like Seth Godin or that you're an expert marketing, consultant. And they're right. You don't need to tell it that as often as you used to. But what I find really makes a difference, that beginning statement, setting the stage, is more for me than it is for the AI because it helps me organize my ideas so that I get things straight. I could dive right into the context and it would generally do a great job. But I still believe that by telling the AI model, I want you to act as an expert copywriter who specializes in creating high converting landing page copy, that if I'm writing a landing page, I'm going to get better responses. If for no other reason that by beginning that process with my prompt, it's putting my mind in the right spot to now give better context. In other words, I'm thinking, what type of context would I give to an expert copywriter who specialized in writing high converting landing copy, as opposed to just rambling and not and sharing too much. I think we've both probably experienced, Colin, the downside to AI is that if you give it too much information, sometimes just like humans, it gets confused. If I
Mm.
give it 7 things to do in one prompt, chances are it's not going to get all 7 of them done right any more than my 17-year-old. If I give him 7 things to do, if I start with taking out the trash and doing this, he's going to get 1 or 2 of them done. And then he's going to go, Dad, what were the rest of them? AI is going to do the same thing, but it's not even going to ask. It's just going to fail.
Yeah. By that point, he's playing his Xbox, completely forgot what you've even asked him
You've
to
met
do,
my
right?
son. Yes, exactly.
The other thing I noticed as well, and I'd love your take on this, is the system prompt in the assuming the role of that gets interesting results, not always great. When I give a specific prompt to an AI, it tends to try and put the thing that I give it into the output. So I don't know whether this is like the way that the models are constructed, but the words that I use always find their way into the output that the AI gives me. And I know that it's part of that algorithm, the way that it tries to
Yeah.
meet expectations, doesn't it? Because it's not a human. It doesn't reason in the same way that humans reason. And so it means that we don't have to be prompt engineers, I don't believe, but we have to understand that we're instructing a non-human intelligence in that sense. And so the way that we phrase those instructions, there's an element of like being intentional and understanding the output. So if I say this is for corporate leaders, then the phrase corporate leaders will, without fail, find its way into the output. The thing for corporate leaders, and it'll overly emphasize the phrase that we give it. So I'm curious your take on like how you corral and iterate the AI into the thing that you actually want. We've got the context, the instruction. What's your take on that, Jonathan?
Well, I've seen the same thing happen. So I think, we're definitely on the same page there. I've absolutely seen that happen. One of the things that I often do is I will ask it to write in a specific tone and style. And I've done that for myself so that, I've given it a style, and I can use this in any AI model because I've got a snippet of text that I can put in to say basically write in the tone and style of, and I copy paste it in from my clipboard.
Oh, so use a contextual information from a sample.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I have found is that by doing that, I get past a lot of what you just talked about, because now it's actually rephrasing things to write in my tone or style. Or if I'm writing for somebody else, if I was writing for you, I would want to know enough about your past writing, maybe some of your podcast stuff. And I'm not feeding it that entire bit of information, but at some point, what I'm going to do, if I were writing, let's say for you, Colin, I would take a bunch of the podcasts and I would take those transcripts and I would feed it into AI and I would say, okay, this is Colin. I need you to analyze his tone, his style, the way he talks, the methodologies he uses. And I need you to create an instruction for me that I can give to ChatGPT to mimic this tone and style. And then what will happen is they'll give me a paragraph or so that basically says, if you tell ChatGPT this, it's going to write in a style that resembles Colin. Well, now in the future, I don't have to give it all of those transcripts anymore. I literally can go, please write in the style of Colin and paste that snippet in, and it will do things. So I find that whether you're for yourself or for others, that really helps, at least in my case, get rid of a lot of those words that everybody go, oh, I can tell it's AI based on the words used. That fixes most of that. And it also helps get rid of it just repeating specific words and phrases that you used and mimicking or parroting them back to you.
Yeah. So again, I'm hearing more context, a different angle on the context, but again, providing that extra layer and level of context in the instruction phase, right?
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah. That's awesome. I knew I always learned so much from you, Jonathan. Thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, I'm betting you know all this already. I appreciate you asking me though.
I'm curious to get your take on, like, you and I both have built businesses and we've, been around. I'm like you, I'm early 50s, been around the block. I've built businesses both pre the online space, like in the old fashioned way.
Yes.
And I've built businesses in the online space, and now experience of business growth with AI. I'd be curious just to see, like, with you, like me, have sat on both sides of that fence there. Like, what do you see as different now to building a business today with this tool at our fingertips, as opposed to back in the olden days when we had to do it with blood, sweat, and tears?
I think there's a couple things that are different. One, we have so much more information that's readily available to us. So as somebody building a business, I have no excuse for I didn't know that, or I didn't think of that, or I never knew. I mean, the data is there. We just need to do it. The other thing that I think, to me, I've seen change. I've always been a believer in the concept of success rewards speed. In other words, we've all met people that are, I'll call them professional students. There's nothing wrong with that. But, I'm going to start a business someday, but I'm going to do all of these things before I start that business. And we meet other people who are, I'm going to start a business today and I'll figure out what I don't know and I'll learn it as I go along. I've always believed that success favors the person who is comfortable with going fast and being a little messy in the process, as opposed to the person who wants everything perfect. That's probably largely because of my personality and who I am. But I've seen with AI that's even moved further ahead in that success absolutely follows speed. The neat thing though is that even somebody who's incredibly disorganized like myself can appear to be reasonably organized because of AI. I was just on a training yesterday and somebody asked me, and if you knew me well, I know your listeners don't, I have never managed to organize anything effectively. I can't manage a task list well. I'm not good with details. It's not who I am. And they asked me, you're so organized in how you bring all this about. How did you do this? And I'm like, I literally started laughing. I'm like, I am not organized, but I know I need to present things in a logical fashion. So what do? I use AI to help me organize my thoughts, which are, squirrel, shiny object all over. Help me organize it into an outline, and then I can follow an outline really well. And so again, those types of things I think is what AI has changed so rapidly to the other businesses that I've built in my life.
Mm. So it's more of a capacity change effectively,
Yes.
and the speed at which you can implement those changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. My wife and I run into this a lot. We both operate in our business together and we work together.
Mm.
And she is an operational genius and does not have ADHD. I do. And we'll often be talking about things and she'll go take a note to do it later. And I'm like, don't do it later, do it now. And she's like, why do you always want to do it now? And I'm like, because then it's done. And with AI in the past, there were a lot of things that, we just took a long drive. We were supposed to fly from Alabama in the United States up to Michigan. Our flights got messed up, so we drove. It's a 16-hour drive.
Long drive.
On that drive, we were talking about a lot of different things. And historically, we would have to take notes and get to them later because we didn't have the laptops out and everything. Well, we're driving and we both had one of these. And my wife could very easily, while she was sitting in the passenger seat, do things with AI. And we literally took some concepts that 2 years ago we would have said, okay, let's bring this up in our next management meeting. We'll talk about it. We actually took those concepts and turned it into an entire deliverable while we were driving in maybe an hour, because we just leveraged the AI to do that literally on our phone. And then we shared that with our team and said, here's what we're going to do. And those are things, again, we just couldn't have done 2 years ago. It wasn't even possible.
That's what makes it feel like magic, I find, Jonathan. It's almost like, wow, literally, it's like abracadabra, you're literally speaking things into being and they become a thing. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Now,
and it's how it works though. I mean, it is so true.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I don't like to advocate the shiny object syndrome thing where people are like chasing tools for tools' sake, but I am genuinely curious to understand what are the tools that are like non-negotiable in your tech stack that you use each and every day and week? Like what excites you and you get the most use from right now?
I'll be happy to share what I use, and I will. I want to the listeners though, if you don't have a tech stack, I want to encourage you that whatever AI tools you have access to, they are sufficient to allow you to leap so far ahead of where you would be without them, that if you're using different tools than I'm going to use and then Colin uses, you're okay. You can, the example I always give is Facebook and Meta have an AI called Meta.ai. Some people use it, but it's not common in the industry. We don't see people talking about it a lot. It's not that it's bad. It's not as good as some of the others. But if the only thing I had access to was Meta.ai, I could still leap so far ahead of my competitors that it would be worth using. My tool stack, on the other hand, ChatGPT is one of my favorites. I am a huge fan of custom GPTs because I can train them on specific data and train them to be specialists to do specific tasks. And they work really, really well with that. So I love ChatGPT for that. I historically have not been a fan of Google's AI until a few months ago when they released the newest versions of 2.5 that they're on in Gemini. And I will say now Gemini is something I use every single day because it's got a massive context window, which means I can feed it so much information and it's fast and reliable. The third tool that I use a lot nowadays that I didn't use just a couple months ago is a tool called Manus, which a lot of people have probably not heard about. It's an agentic AI by a Chinese company. And the difference there is that with ChatGPT and Gemini, I often need to say, here's the task I need help with. With Manus, I can actually say, here's the objective I want to achieve, and it will help me achieve that objective through using agentic features and basically, even connecting to other applications that I have, doing things. The quick example is the other day I had received a number of emails from an event sponsor that I'm speaking at regularly over the next year. And it was about 11 emails. I saw them come in. I didn't even open them. I just went to my AI and said, I received 11 emails or a bunch of emails, I think it was, from Vanessa. Didn't even say who it was from. They're all about events I'm speaking at. One, I need you to accept them and put them in my calendar. Two, I need you to put together a table of all the events, the cities and the locations they're at, the times and dates, so that I can have that available because I want to have that to look at. And then third, I need you to email my ops director, Romay, and my wife, Beth, because Beth travels with me sometimes, this list so that they know what's going on. Now, normally I would have had my team do that, but I was able to use an agent through AI to do that. Yes, I had to connect it to my Gmail and that. And in under a minute, it had done all of those things for me. And I didn't have to open a single one of those emails. I didn't have to do anything else. It wrote the email to send to Romay and Beth and basically said, does this look good? Send, done. So those are things that are coming. And again, part of the tech stack that I'm using nowadays.
Awesome. I love that. That's truly delegating to the AI, isn't it? And giving it those abilities to do those agentic actions. And just for those of you that don't understand the idea of agentic AI, when we talk about agents, it's literally an AI that will just be semi-autonomous and do more than one thing. So if we ask an AI, hey, help me to create this presentation, it will give you a response. An agentic AI will do steps and multiple steps. So like Jonathan's just described there, looking at what are the emails, retrieve the emails, analyze what the content of those emails, and then do another step of like, what do we do with this information now? And how do we create that? And how do we what do we need to add into the calendar? And it like breaks down those steps. That's when, this is the worst it's ever going to be, Jonathan. It's just going to get more fun from here on in, isn't it?
And that's what's so exciting. People ask me that all the time. What do you see happening next? And my answer is typically, I don't know, because things are happening so fast that even, I grew up watching things like Star Trek on TV and Star Wars and all that. And even the things we saw there, some of those things are happening or we're already past those now. So I really don't know what to expect in many capacities, because some of the things that we now are having available to us, we could have never done before. We just got a new phone system in our office, and we had to go through and do all the automated attendant and the voice. And my team had decided, since I'm kind of the face of the company, should be my voice. I didn't have time to read it all, but we've trained a profile in 11 Labs, which is an AI voice tool. And my team literally went out to 11 Labs, logged into the account, typed up, wrote the content, what they needed, typed it all up, had it do it, saved all the files. And then they asked my wife to call and see what it sounded like. She didn't even know it wasn't me. She did ask at one point, was that really Jonathan or AI? But only because she knows me. But most people would never know. And that's just one of those examples. That's the type of thing that historically, okay, somebody would have had to write it. I would have had to take time to record it all and figure all that out. Literally, my team just took care of it all with AI. And for most people, without thinking about it, there'd be no reason not to think, oh, Jonathan did that.
I love that. That's a great example of how we can be everywhere all at once and be a real amplifier, a real magnifier of our capacity. I have one question I'd love just to ask you before we wrap our conversation, Jonathan. What is, for that person that is excited about the things that we're sharing, really wanting to get into the next level of how they're exploring AI, how would you advise that person that's looking to just like take what we've spoken about, implement something and go and experiment to get to that next level? What would be your advice to that person?
Experiment, use AI, spend there's nothing wrong with learning and watching videos and taking trainings. I mean, I provide those. That's how I make my living. There's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, you need to sit in front of your keyboard or in front of your phone, and you need to use the tool and try it out. It's not going to bite you. It's not going to hurt, but it can absolutely help provide you with the tools that you need to do so much more. The thing I often tell most people is imagine you could just add 30 minutes a day to your time without having to give up anything you're doing right now. What would that mean just from a peace and a quality of life perspective? Let's not even talk productivity or profits. Just how much better would that make your life if you could get to the end of your day and not have more tasks than you had time? AI can allow you to get there and can really allow you to get there today or tomorrow. We don't have to look at next week or next month or next quarter. It's literally the type of thing we can do that over a few days of just experimenting and trying things out.
I love that. And I genuinely could talk to you all day, Jonathan. Thank you so much. It's been lovely sharing this space with you over the course of these 2 conversations that we've had together. For those people who want to dive deeper into your work and learn more about you, what's the best place for them to connect?
Well, they can either remember my name, it's Jonathan Mast, MAST.com, and go to there. Or if you just remember the white beard and AI and you Google that, you'll find my company, Whitebeard Strategies. And we've got tons and tons of free resources. I run a massive free Facebook group. If you're just looking for tips and that, it's a great place to hang out, and it's all free. There's some paid stuff if you want to do a deeper dive, but start off with the free stuff and let's see if we can help you learn.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jonathan. I am a member of Jonathan's free Facebook group. It's where I've learned a lot from Jonathan in there around the whole prompt engineering, the whole approach and adoption of AI. So highly recommend that you go check out Jonathan's work. He is that rock star in the AI space. It's been an absolute honor to share this space with you today. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Thrive and Serve podcast. Today, we had an outstanding discussion with Jonathan Mast. I love these conversations, and it's not about the conversation. It's about what you do with the information that we've discussed here. So with Jonathan's wisdom, with those ideas around experimentation, what will you do with this? Because it's in the way that you show up, your amplification of your message, that changes the world. Not in, oh, that's a great, nice to have tool. So our invitation to you is to ponder and think about how this will change how you show up and what you do today and tomorrow with this information. And I look forward to seeing you next time.